It's a week before Christmas, and people are doing last-minute Christmas shopping, getting gifts for their family and friends, and planning dinners, parties, all the usual stuff. It's a typical Christmas holiday for everyone. Well, everyone except the Bletch family. The Bletch family was in a Muskegon courtroom for the hearing and sentencing of their daughter's killer. But in the middle of victim impact statements, the killer just stood up, asked to leave, then blew a kiss to the Bletch family as he walked out of the courtroom. The courtroom erupted in fury, with people shouting out names like coward and monster as he walked away. But this was nothing new for him, because the Bletch family wasn't his only set of victims. This man had killed before. Welcome to True Crime Stories. If this is your first time here, I'm your host, Ty Knotts, and I post new true crime documentaries every single week. There's not a bunch of drama and speculation, it's just fact-based true crime. So if that's your thing, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free and it just lets you know when I post new videos. Jessica Heeringa, a loving mother of a 3-year-old son, was a gas station worker at Exxon in Norton Shores, Michigan. At the time of the case, Jessica's boyfriend, Dakota Quayle Dyer, had just lost his job, so Jessica was quick to accept any and every possible shift to provide for her family. She had a child to look after, and even though Jessica and Dakota's relationship was anything but perfect, she was adamant about making things work. Jessica had fallen into a deep pit of substance abuse not long before, and she was working her way up to turn her life around. Jessica was defined as a sweet, hard-working young woman who loved her son more than anything. She was a woman who'd made some mistakes, yes, but she was doing her best to rectify them and get things back on track. At Exxon, Jessica usually worked the daytime shift, but at the time of the case, since she was in a tight spot financially, she took up a night shift, where she was supposed to work from the evening to 11 p.m. So on April 26th of 2013, Jessica had a busy day ahead. She got up, went about her morning routine, and then headed for the grocery store to stock up on some things at about 2:44 p.m. 2 hours later, close to 5 p.m., she was at the gas station, donned in her work clothes, ready to start her shift. It was a normal day at the Exxon gas station, people pulling up to fill up on gas and grabbing knickknacks from the store inside. It was a typical boring day, and all was going well until closing time, when someone made a 911 call. It was a customer who called 911, and they seemed very distressed. According to the caller, there was no one inside or outside the gas station. The lights were on, the doors were unlocked, there was a deserted car near the gas pumps, and everything looked eerie. The gas station didn't look like it had been robbed or ransacked. It almost looked like the person working there just stepped out for a bit. But where were they now? They couldn't have gone far because they were still on the clock. The police immediately came to the scene and checked things out. And almost instantly, they found some alarming things. First of all, a woman's jacket, a purse containing close to $400, and cigarettes were left behind. The investigators assumed that it belonged to the gas station worker, who most likely was a woman, judging by the handbag. The police checked the last purchase made by a customer, and it was billed at 10:55 p.m., just a couple of minutes before the 911 call was made, and someone had bought a cigarette lighter. The police also discovered something outside the gas station that made them stop dead in their tracks. Outside, there was a questionable sight of red. The floor of the gas station was dotted with red specks, and it just left everyone feeling dreadful. Moreover, a battery cover off of a laser sight for a firearm was also found. The investigators did suspect robbery, but after seeing the untouched money in the woman's purse and the gas station's cash registers, this was soon ruled out. Something had happened at this gas station, and now an employee had gone missing. After a bit of poking and prodding, the police managed to identify the worker, and it was 25-year-old Jessica Heeringa. She had a night shift at this gas station, and now she was nowhere to be found. This left the investigators with confusion and tons of questions, so they immediately started asking around because, well, the gas station wasn't of much help to begin with. Why? Well, because there were no CCTV cameras that could generate any leads. If that wasn't unsettling enough, then the fact that Jessica, a lone woman, was working a late-night shift at an unsupervised gas station, well, that's everyone's worst nightmare. So the police had very little to go on in this bizarre disappearance. Still, they decided to ask witnesses around for anything out of the ordinary, and they even checked neighboring CCTV cameras for any answers. This was when they found something out. A woman came forward, and she was none other than the manager of the very gas station Jessica worked at. She told the investigators that around 11 p.m., she and her husband were passing by the gas station on their motorcycles when they saw a silver minivan driving to the back of the station. The manager initially thought that was a weird place for a customer's car to go, and her mind went straight to the fact that someone was trying to rob the gas station. This prompted the woman to go a bit further, and when she saw a man getting out of the minivan with the rear hatch opened, she stayed for a bit just to see what was going on. The man drove away after a couple of minutes, and the manager saw nothing alarming to report to the police, so she also drove off. Little did she know that just minutes later, her employee Jessica would go missing. When the police asked what the man looked like, the manager said that he was wearing an orange sweatshirt and had crazy wavy hair. So at that point, the investigators finally had something to go off of: a silver minivan. So they decided to check nearby surveillance cameras for that same vehicle. And within minutes, they'd found another lead. A silver Chrysler Town & Country was seen driving away from the station by 3 different cameras between 11:02 and 11:05 p.m. that night. The investigators also talked to people around the gas station, and one man came forward and said that he saw someone, a man in a silver minivan, talking to Jessica the night she went missing. According to the witness, the man seemed very flirtatious with Jessica, and he was able to describe the man as a man with wavy hair wearing either a red or orange sweatshirt. This was 2 times in a row that a similar description of a man had popped up, who seemed to be the last person with Jessica. What was even more unsettling was an occurrence the night before Jessica's disappearance, though. See, a woman who was a regular customer at the gas station went there again on April 25th around closing time and saw a man close to Jessica. They were in the middle of a conversation, and the woman proceeded to ask Jessica why she was working the night shift alone and that it was dangerous. To this, the mysterious man replied, "She's got her customers looking out for her." This reply left the woman feeling a bit odd, and when she looked over at Jessica, she was shaking her head and seemed as though she may have been scared. This woman's gut told her that something was wrong, and she waited out in her car close to the gas station until she saw Jessica close up and leave safely. She also saw the creepy man leave after this very uncomfortable conversation. The woman also described the man, and it was the same description given by the gas station manager and the other witness. So the police, with the help of witnesses, came up with a composite sketch of the abductor. It was made public, and the police held press conferences and made appeals to the public to come forward with any information on Jessica's abductor and where she might be. But the case soon lost its pace and received no further leads. A mother of a 3-year-old son had gone missing, and no one knew what happened to her. And just like that, Jessica's case went cold for quite some time. But on June 29th of 2014, 14 long months after Jessica's inexplicable disappearance, another woman from Dalton Township, Michigan, was also found lifeless near her home. She was 36-year-old Rebecca Blech, and she'd been out jogging when she crossed paths with her assailant and was attacked with a firearm. This incident unleashed a wave of terror among the people of Michigan. First, there was Jessica and her disappearance, which was unsolved, and now another woman's life was taken. But the detectives found some shell casings near Rebecca's body, as well as fragments of bullets during her autopsy. The police had no leads in this case either. The police, as well as the community, were getting an eerie sense of deja vu. Like Jessica's disappearance, Rebecca's murder would also go unanswered for about 2 years, and during this time, the perpetrator would strike again. But they say that the 3rd time's the charm, and well, this next incident would prove to be helpful in the police's case. On April 16th of 2016, a young high school girl from Laketown Township got lost after leaving a party late at night. In no time, she was approached by a man in a silver minivan. The man asked if she needed to use his phone to call someone. When the girl said yes, the man asked her to get into his car to make the call. The girl was apprehensive at first, but she eventually complied, and as soon as she sat down in the passenger seat, the mysterious man locked all the doors and subdued the girl with the firearm. The girl was frightened to the core, and she knew that she'd made a terrible mistake getting into this creepy man's car. But her instincts kicked in pretty fast, and she knew that she was going to escape, even if she had to fight this man off of her. As they drove away, the girl asked the man to roll down the windows for some air. This was her only chance of escaping. Miraculously, the girl managed to push herself out of the vehicle from the window, and after a bit of struggling, she was able to make a run for it from the car and its malicious driver. The girl had suffered from minor injuries, but she had successfully managed to escape whatever this guy had planned for her. Luck was on this girl's side, because she was also about to identify the driver of that silver minivan, and she went straight to the police. The man turned out to be Jeffrey Willis, and what was even more chilling was that he'd previously been in jail for homicide. This led the detectives to search Jeffrey's minivan, and inside it, they found a firearm with the laser sight's battery cover missing, and the serial number deliberately scratched off. Not only this, the police also found syringes filled with a clear liquid, which was later found to be a powerful sedative, as well as binds and other weapons. The minivan was essentially a chamber of torment, and it's not hard to guess what Jeffrey could have done to this poor girl if she hadn't run away. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what will. The detectives were able to retrieve the serial number for the firearm after a bit of work, and it was traced back to a woman who was coincidentally Jeffrey's coworker. She reported her firearm missing from her home, and interestingly enough, the gun also had a laser, so the pieces started to fall into place. A man with a shady history and a tendency to act violently, and he had the same silver minivan. This couldn't be a mere coincidence. In September of 2016, over 3 years following Jessica's disappearance and 4 years after Rebecca's murder, Jeffrey's house and vehicle were searched after issuing a search warrant. And let's just say that the detectives were in for a surprise because Jeffrey was a walking red flag. On his computer, officers found a lot of violent material about women and children. You can fill in the gaps there yourself. But speaking of the computer, the police also found a very peculiar folder on there as well, and it was named VIX. And besides violent material, there were 2 subfolders named JLH and RSB. It was one hit after another for the detectives because these abbreviations were anything but random. JLH eerily expands to Jessica Lynn Heeringa, and RSB corresponds to Rebecca Sue Bletch. The folders contained pictures of the 2 women and news articles following their disappearance and/or murder. If you needed any more confirmation, then one of Jeffrey's computers was password protected, and the password was J4L27H13. And this was Jessica's initials and the date that she was reported missing, kind of pushed together. In Jeffrey's house, a firearm was also retrieved, and unsurprisingly, the shell casings found near Rebecca's body matched to that exact weapon, so that was another check. Upon gathering all of this evidence from his home and car, Jeffrey was immediately arrested for kidnapping and murdering Jessica Heeringa. He was also subsequently charged with Rebecca's murder, the attempted kidnapping of the high school girl, the very girl who became his eventual downfall, and was also named a suspect in an unsolved murder of a Fruitport High School student that took place in October of 1996. It was later found out that Jeffrey was a frequent visitor at the Exxon gas station where Jessica worked, having visited there about 15 times. So it's assumed that Jeffrey had his nefarious sights set on Jessica, and on the night of April 26th, he acted on his vile plan. Jeffrey's coworkers also later ratted him out after they saw serious scratches and injuries on his arms and face the day after Jessica went missing. Jeffrey's phone records also showed that he was at a remote property 15 minutes away from the gas station at around 11:30 p.m. It turned out that this property belonged to Jeffrey. It was his grandfather's, inherited by Jeffrey after he'd passed away. When the detectives searched the property, they didn't find Jessica, but they did find something. At the property, detectives managed to find bleach and other cleaning supplies, which had likely been used to clean up a crime scene. Now, with all of this evidence now brought in for testing, it was time. Time to send this man to trial and do their best to lock him up for what he had done to these young women. The trial for Jessica's murder was held in May of 2018, even though her body hadn't been found. It was one of those cases in which the evidence was just so incriminating that the prosecution was confident to convict Jeffrey without a body. The prosecution presented heaps upon heaps of evidence, from the material found on Jeffrey's computers to the firearms, witness testimonies, and everything in between. The prosecution believed that Jeffrey had been looking for the perfect opportunity to target Jessica, and on the night of April 26th, he lured Jessica into his van, even injuring her in the process, and then sped out of the gas station parking lot. It's believed that he repeatedly assaulted Jessica while simultaneously taking advantage of her. Once he was done, he took her life. And the prosecution stated that Jessica most likely fought for her life in a severe way, injuring Jeffrey in the process, but she couldn't save herself in the end. Afterward, it's believed that he buried her and carried on with his life like nothing even happened. In the end, a month after the trial, the jury deliberated for about 90 minutes before sentencing a guilty Jeffrey to life in prison with no possibility of parole. As for Rebecca's murder, he was also given the same sentence in December of 2017. But even though Jeffrey was behind bars, there was still one big piece missing in this case. Jessica hadn't been found. Now, everyone was certain that Jeffrey had taken Jessica's life and she was no longer alive, but the family still wanted her body or her remains to be found to give her a proper burial. The Heeringa family needed closure. Well, that's when the plot thickened even more, and Jeffrey's cousin entered the picture. See, in 2016, Kevin Blum, Jeffrey's cousin and former Michigan Department of Corrections prison guard, was charged with lying to the police. He knew a lot of details about Jessica's murder that weren't public information. He initially pleaded guilty to the charges, but later changed his plea to no contest, to being an accessory after the fact. Basically, Kevin divulged that even though Jeffrey was the one who took Jessica's life, it was Kevin who helped him out with disposing of the body. Kevin confessed that Jeffrey had called him the day after Jessica disappeared, asking him to come over for a party. When Kevin arrived, he didn't see a party anywhere. Rather, he saw an unconscious, disrobed, and bound Jessica on the floor with a serious head injury. According to Kevin, he and Jeffrey wrapped Jessica's body in a sheet and loaded her up in his car. The men made their way to a remote area on Sheridan Road near Laketon Road, where Jeffrey, being the calculated and meticulous monster that he was, had already dug a hole for Jessica. The two then buried Jessica's body, dusted their hands off, and rode off into the night. Jeffrey is just a class act. Not only is this man just disgusting and gross, but he is a vile, heartless soul with no regard for anyone but himself. When you go to a court session to hear the conviction of a killer, more often than not, the families of the victims are allowed to give impact statements. This is a way for the family's grievances to be heard, and it's a healing measure for both the family and, hopefully, the criminal. In some instances, once the criminals hear just how badly their actions have affected others, it does help them see the error of their ways and turn their life around. This wasn't true for Jeffrey. Following Jeffrey's sentencing, this man dared to stand up and walk out of the courtroom while Rebecca's family was in the middle of reading their statements. I didn't know if this was even allowed, but the judge let it happen. And if that wasn't enough, Jeffrey still blatantly denied having any involvement in Jessica's disappearance, and even blew the family a kiss as he walked out of the courtroom. In light of Jessica and Rebecca's cases, the families fought hard for justice and change. Following Rebecca's trial and Jeffrey's walk of detachment, her family petitioned for the passing of a law known as Rebecca Bletch's Law. This requires the defendants to sit through the victim impact statements and listen to every single painful and emotional word. The bill was passed by the Michigan Senate on May 10th of 2018, and Rick Snyder, then governor of Michigan, signed it into law on May 24th of 2018. As for Jessica's loved ones, they were appalled at the fact that the establishment she worked at, a busy and reputable gas station, didn't have any security cameras on its premises. They were also angry at the fact that Jessica was the only one working the night shift, which is a pretty scary time for a vulnerable woman to be working in a public place. They sternly believed that whatever happened to Jessica could have been prevented if only someone was there with her. Jeffrey wouldn't have preyed on a young and vulnerable woman if she wasn't alone. This was quite literally and tragically the perfect striking opportunity for a violent predator like Jeffrey. Because of this, Jessica's family made continued efforts to pass a bill known as the Jessica Heeringa Act. The bill was passed on December 9, 2013, requested by Jessica's parents, community members, and a handful of other Michigan legislature members. The bill required gas stations, convenience stores, and 24/7 service stores to have a working and secured surveillance system. Additionally, all stores and gas stations operable till late in the night were required to have at least 2 staff members on shift. The purpose of this bill was to protect and look after shift workers, who are mostly either high school students, women, or college students. But 12 years after the passing of this bill, it still hasn't made its way into Michigan legislature officially. Now, this probably sounds completely insane, but it all boils down to cost. Lawmakers feel that it's too much of a burden to ask a small business to pay 2 employees at a low traffic hour, as well as ask them to pay to install expensive security systems. The thing is, I get it. Some places can't afford it. But this is people's lives we're talking about, not money. If you can't afford it, don't stay open that late. It's simple. But no, they'd rather risk even more lives than risk their money. This is America at its finest. As for Jessica's body, Jeffrey did not say a single word about it. Even though he's nowhere near freedom and will pay for his actions behind bars for the rest of his life, he's still gatekeeping this information. Whether it's his way of having power over the victim's family, or if it's a sick and twisted way of getting pleasure out of someone's misery, I'm not sure. Jessica's parents and loved ones just want her back home, because without Jessica, there is no justice. Jessica's boyfriend and their son Zevin miss her terribly. But in 2014, Dakota, Jessica's boyfriend and the father of their child, was arrested on drug charges, which caused Jessica's sister Samantha to file for emergency custody of Zevin. But as of present, we don't know what ever happened with this situation or where Zevin ended up. At this point, Zevin is likely already 18 or he's close to it. And I just hope everything worked out okay for him. This young man lost everything in his life. First his mother, then his father. And for what? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. I wanted to give a special thank you to a couple channel members, including Joey Royer and Kyle Bankston. If you also want to become a member of the channel, you'll gain access to new videos sometimes days or weeks before they're uploaded to the public, and it is a great way to support the channel and help out. And I really appreciate those of you who have decided to do that. If you want to join, you can click that big join button below the video, or find the link down in the description. And don't forget, True Crime Stories t-shirts are also now available. And you can grab one of those from the link down in the description as well. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case I covered. And don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free. It just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.